There is no denying that open world titles are one of the most, if not the most popular type of games in recent years. It seems that thanks to their huge success, every publisher now wants one, and every day we see new games with huge open worlds being announced. Even some of the older franchises that never had anything to do with them are also making new open world style entries, only proving that this is where players' attention and money is. In order to shed some light on this phenomenon, I wanted to take a look at some of the most popular games and developers of this genre, talk about their concepts, gameplay and content in general, and mention more sinister reasons as to why publishers might prefer them over other types of single-player games. So let's begin. Although I'm not here to give you a history lesson, it is important to remember where it all began. Open world games have a long history, and trying to find out which one was first is not an easy task. First attempts date all the way back to 1981 with RPG Ultima, that had an open world map inspired by tabletop RPG Dungeons & Dragons. And if your definition of open world and a game is very broad, you can even consider that as the first game of this kind. In 1984 we saw Elite, a space simulator that fits the modern description of genre more than Ultima, and is often mentioned as open world game that started it all. Then in 1986, Legend of Zelda was released, one of the most famous exploration games ever made, inspiring hundreds of developers in the future. Then we move on from 80s to 90s, with games such as Super Mario 64, Body Harvest, Shenmue or Driver, until we get to 2001, when a developer, back then known as DMA Design, released one of the most influential and popular open world games of our time. GTA 3, a game that defined and kickstarted the whole new subgenre of open world city actions that still take inspiration from it to this day. Most of its core concepts were introduced in previous two installments, and while recreating them into fully rendered 3D world proved more difficult than team expected, they managed to pull through and create an instant hit, selling over 14 million copies, winning Game of the Year awards, and being labeled as one of the most significant titles of 6th console generation. Liberty City was a huge playground that you could explore in cars, boats, planes or on foot, with tons of activities to participate in. Rockstar didn't stop there, and with sequels Vice City, San Andreas and GTA 4 that also sold millions of copies, they popularized open world genre even more, and cemented their place as one of the best gaming developers of our time. Latest incarnation in this franchise, GTA 5, released in 2013, is by far the most successful one. It sold more than 130 million copies, which makes it the second most selling game of all time, right behind Minecraft, earning more than $6 billion worldwide. Even to this day, you can always find it in top 10 most selling games of the month, and at its peak hours, more than 200,000 people played on Steam, and it still sells like crazy even after it was free on Epic. Outside of GTA, they also made Red Dead Redemption 2, another huge open world title whose sequel sold over 34 million copies, which is something most developers only dream of. So yes, you could say that Rockstar is partially responsible for immense popularity of open world games, but they were not the only ones. While Rockstar games are great and sell well, their production cycle is long, but if you want to keep a phenomenon going, you need constant stream of new titles for it. And you probably guessed which company took that as their mission. Starting in 2007 with first Assassin's Creed, Ubisoft has been producing open world games for over a decade now. While Assassin's Creed received multiple sequels in quick succession, it was another franchise that laid groundwork for what we today perceive as a typical Ubisoft open world game, and that is Far Cry. Far Cry 2 served as a prototype, while its sequel, Far Cry 3, showed Ubisoft that this is the way. Since then, its formula of big world, with crafting, light RPG elements, gameplay that allows you to choose between stealthy or guns blazing approach, lots of places to explore and question marks to tick off, has been a staple for years. And it works. Both Far Cry 3 and 4 sold over 10 million copies, and Far Cry 5 earned over $310 million in its first week, doubling Far Cry's 4 sales, becoming the second best launch in company's history. Far Cry is not the only successful open world franchise of Ubisoft. I mean, to be honest, all they do now is open world, and almost every single one of them does good. Division, Watch Dogs, Ghost Recon, The Crew, and of course Assassin's Creed are all huge names, selling more and more copies with each sequel. What is also important is consistency. Each year some of the household names get a new entry, or we are introduced to new games with open world philosophy. In 2020 we had Watch Dogs Legion, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and Immortals Phoenix Rising. Last year there was Ghost Recon Breakpoint and Division 2. Next year Far Cry 6 and God knows what else. That way there is a constant stream of new Ubisoft titles, keeping them relevant, with gamers getting used to a new game every few months that they can sink hundreds of hours into. With that consistency, Ubisoft keeps their hardcore fans while luring new ones every year. Familiarity is another huge thing that can be a double-edged sword. Lately, a lot of reviewers, but also players, complain that all Ubisoft games are same, and that's why they no longer recommend or play them. But on the other hand, some people like this, because they always know what they'll get for their money and buy every single Ubisoft title that comes out. Plus, with such a wide range of open world franchises to choose from, everyone can find something to like. I'm sure most of us tried and enjoyed at least one of them, and I did as well. I really like Assassin's Creed and played through every single installment. I also like Watch Dogs and Far Cry. I'm okay with Division, but don't enjoy Ghost Recon that much. I don't mind the repetitive nature, since unlike reviewers I don't play every single franchise, so choose which one I like. That way I only go through maybe 1 or 2 Ubisoft games per year and don't get bored by them. Before you type a fiery comment down below, I wish they would change it up a bit and stop relying on the same stuff over and over again, but you know, as long as it sells, why change it? With that said, to me, Ubisoft feels like one of the developers of open world titles that played and still plays a huge part in its popularity. When it comes to open world games, we can't forget about Bethesda. While their reputation now is not that great, they did make a lot of good and successful titles in the past. Elder Scrolls and Fallout are one of the most famous open world franchises, thanks to their quality but also modding scene that keeps them alive even years after initial release. That way, Bethesda gets constant stream of new fans that discover their games through modding. All you need is one viral video of Thomas the Tank Engine in Skyrim. And you can see it in sales as well. Fallout 4 sold over 13 million copies, Fallout 3 sold 10, and New Vegas over 7.5. And even though Fallout 76 is considered a failure, it still sold more than 2.5 million copies. And boy, don't get me started on Skyrim. That game was ported on every single console in existence, only thing that's missing is mobile and smart washing machine version. Anyway, I guess it paid off since Skyrim sold over 30 million copies. It was also a huge inspiration for many RPGs and open world designers, and since its release in 2010, we saw a lot of good RPGs that took elements from it, and even to this day, it is still used in reviews for comparisons. Previous Elder Scrolls title Oblivion was also a commercial success. Year after its release, it sold more than 3 million copies. Now if you look at previous numbers, it might seem small, but you have to consider that it came out in 2006, where 3 million was a huge number. To sum it up, even though you may not like Bethesda now, it is clear that they also played a huge part in making open world games popular. So hopefully they will finally release a new game, because you can't port Skyrim forever, right Todd? Or can you? One more company I want to talk about is CD Projekt Red, everyone's favorite developer. Well, maybe not right now. Still, they made one of the best selling, and more importantly, critically acclaimed open worlds of all time, Witcher 3. It sold over 28 million copies. Just like with any successful game, many developers were inspired by it, including previously mentioned Ubisoft. Assassin's Creed Origins and Odyssey take a lot from Witcher 3, and for good reason. Witcher is the go-to game if you want to experience an amazing huge world with great quests, story and characters. And if I had to recommend a good RPG for anyone, I would go with this game. As long as you complete previous games first, because those are great as well. Right now it sits at over 400,000 reviews on Steam, with 98% of them being positive, which is something you don't see every day, especially with AAA titles. No wonder Cyberpunk was one of the most anticipated games of this generation. It had over 8 million pre-orders, more than 1 million concurrent players when it launched. Just 2 weeks after its release, it already has more than 200,000 reviews. It's crazy how popular it is, and huge part of that can be attributed to Witcher 3 and its success. I mean, it is not in best shape right now and there are a lot of things that need fixing, but no one can deny that Cyberpunk is one of the biggest games of our generation, at least in terms of hype and sales. And we all know CDPR will recover from this backlash. I mean, did you saw their army of simps everywhere? In a year no one will remember that Cyberpunk didn't work, and it will be known as modern classic.
Why do you come?
So if you're a huge gaming publisher and you see these crazy numbers Rockstar, Bethesda, Ubisoft or Polish boys pull with their open world games, you would want a piece of that pie too, right? Open world games sell, they are popular and gamers love them. Just like in previous generation, everyone tried to make the next Call of Duty, now everyone wants their own GTA or Witcher. Almost every game company is making these games right now, and franchises that were not even remotely close to them are making sequels in open worlds. Metro Exodus, Last of Us Part 2, and many more are going with at least semi-open worlds. Plus, almost every new AAA game is also open world. Just take a look at any list of upcoming games or ones that came out in 2020. Outside of glorious sales, there are more reasons as to why developers choose this genre for their games. When making a game, you want players in it for as long as possible. That way, they get more invested, don't play other titles, talk about it with their friends, and might even spend some money on future DLCs. And to make a game like that, you need to give them a reason to stay, and that is done a lot easier in an open world. As long as your world is engaging, fun to explore, looks good and gameplay is at least serviceable, you can just put hundreds of map markers or design some fetch quests so that players have something to do, and slap some basic story on top. And there you have it, a recipe to create a game that players can put tens of hours into. Of course, I'm not saying that designing a good open world is easy, and it is a lot of work, at least as much as making a linear game. But when you make a classic FPS that is around 6 hours long, or a game like Devil May Cry 5 with set amount of levels, it is harder to keep people engaged for longer. You either add multiplayer or try to make gameplay or story good enough for people to replay. In my experience, with open world all you need is to hook players in at the start and they will keep playing. I spend tens of hours in various open worlds and I usually stay in them until I complete main story and more interesting side quests if I care for it. I also play a lot of linear games and when comparing my time in both types, I definitely put more into open worlds. One more sinister reason to use open world games is that it is a lot easier to put in microtransactions. Most have some sort of economy, which can be exploited. You can sell costumes, crafting supplies, money, or time savers for faster level ups. And if someone wants to make their character look cooler or wants to get supplies and upgrades quicker, it is easier to persuade them to spend a few dollars if they're already 20 hours in. I can't imagine anything to sell in a game that is linear, unless you want to be really scummy about it. Now, I don't think publishers or developers choose open world games just so they could put microtransactions in them, but you know, it can be one of their benefits that persuades shareholders when they decide what banger to make next for little Timmy and his parents' wallet. But who cares about all that? What is more important is gamers' opinion. Why do we love open world games so much? Well, I can only talk from my perspective and there are multiple reasons, so hopefully you can relate to me in at least one of them. I remember that when I was younger, seeing an open world game was not as common as it is today, and every time one got released, I was very excited. What I love most about them is their exploration aspect. I see a big new world that I never experienced before, and I want to explore it as much as I can. I remember that in GTA San Andreas, I had no idea what story was about, but I knew where all the secret weapons, jumps and shops were. I knew all 3 cities better than my own, and I loved every second I spent in them. Over the years I explored many more worlds and this feeling is still there. Just recently I started Red Dead Redemption 2, and while I was a bit intimidated by the size of its world, I eagerly dived in and I'm having a blast. It is so easy to get lost in a well-made world, especially if it is made up with tons of lore behind it, that way you feel like you're exploring something that you can't find anywhere else. If it also has good atmosphere, then I'm all set and ready to see everything it has to offer. Other than exploration, freedom and activities are also important. Good open world games offer a lot of stuff to do outside of main story, and they allow you to do these things without any restrictions. In Far Cry you can hunt animals, search for collectibles or take out camps. In Red Dead you can hunt down animals, search for collectibles or take out camps. In Assassin's Creed you can hunt down animals, search for collectibles or take out camps. Alright, sometimes activities in games are similar, but for me they are still fun, and there are unique ones. In Red Dead Redemption 2 there are a lot of side stories to complete, and in Assassin's Creed Odyssey you can hunt down cult members, and in Far Cry New Dawn you collect resources and build up your base. Plus there are games like Fallout 4 that offer all of these, with some being better and some worse than their counterparts in other games. What I'm trying to say is that as long as activities are fun and you can do them as much as you want without it being too repetitive, then for me they can carry an open world game, even without good story. In linear games, if the gameplay or story is not a total banger, well, then you don't have many reasons to play them. With open world games, people tend to be more forgiving, and as long as the world itself is good, then they can overlook some shortcomings. Another important thing is price versus content. A linear game is usually around 15 hours long, With open worlds, you can spend tens of hours in them, and so the decision whether you want to spend $60 on a short linear game for a few nights or on a big open world game that you can play for weeks is easy. Even though, to be honest, lately I prefer shorter games, since I don't have that much time for big ones anymore, and also they are a lot less frequent now than they used to be, just like open worlds used to be rare 10 years ago, thus completing the cycle. So, why are open world games so popular? To sum it up, I think it's a combination of successful franchises and companies who develop them, thus inspiring other developers to do them as well. Gamers' enjoyment of them, which comes from good ratio of spend money versus time, open world's ability to absorb players in and give them things to do along with the exploration aspect, and for publishers it might be due to huge possibilities of in-game microtransactions that are just not possible in linear games, and because, well, gamers like them. Just like bombastic FPS shooters defined last generation, open world games are what defines this one, and I think it is time for something to replace them. Not every new AAA title needs to have an open world, and good linear games like Devil May Cry 5 or Resident Evil 2 Remake are a breath of fresh air that will hopefully show that linear games are not dead. But from the looks of it, those will be exceptions, and most of new and upcoming games are sticking to the open world guns that have been working for years now, and it looks like open world games are here to stay, whether you like it or not. And yeah guys, I guess that's about it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know that this is the third essay type video in a row, but it is the last one I will be making. These last three were just topics I really wanted to talk about, and they've been in my head for some even years. I think that this open world video, I had it in my drafts since like 2018, I think, so around 2 years, and yeah, I just wanted to finish them all up. So yeah, like I said, last 3 videos were the essays I wanted to make, and now I will be focusing on the rest of the videos. Like I mentioned, next one should be the Frontier video. By the time this video is out, it might even have come out, because I'm not sure when I'll be releasing this one. I mean, for example, the last video was done like 3 weeks before I finally released it, simply because I just didn't have access to it. So yeah, depending on how fast I edit this one, Frontier might already be come out and I might already be playing it. Well, we'll see. Anyway, Frontier is next, then we have the top 10 Fallout New Vegas mods for 2020. I already have the list ready, I just wasn't really feeling like recording it. Yeah, then we have the Ark, Fallout New Vegas and Rainbow Six video. And after that, the one more secret one. I hope you're looking forward to that one. Other than that, I've been doing fine, and I hope you're doing fine as well. And Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all of you. And yeah guys, I guess that's about it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did. Tell me what you think about it in the comments. Subscribe for more Fallout and other games content. And I will see you next time.